Okay, so we got our timer set up, and we get 20 here. Boost it up. There we go. Testing, testing, testing. We're good. Okay, so it's my pleasure to be sitting here with Rob. It seems like 100 years ago, and yet it was only maybe 18 months ago that you kind of moved over here, starting up, kind of your next phase of growth with Horizen. I met you when you were really first launching in Austin. I was impressed with what your vision was then, and kind of moved around for a while. By the time I think you get to Puerto Rico, you were still about the same market cap, because you really hadn't, sort of gotten everything out into the ecosystem. I remember you telling me your vision again, and I think it didn't quite click in terms of like the depth of what you were creating, and it is now, and obviously the market's recognizing that because you're up about maybe 10x over where you were then. You were as high as 20, and
well, you did buy some then, right?
Not as much as I should have, but at any rate, I think there's opportunities again. I think, I know you were talking about privacy a lot then, and I didn't realize that instead of being sort of another competitor to like a Dash or a Zcash, you were going to be really more like the Chainlink of the space. You're really working with a lot of projects, and now with Zen-Dude, it's really clear that you've got a huge opportunity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I think that a lot of people, rightfully so, because we actually launched 4 years ago as a privacy coin. So that assumption of comparing us to the Moneros, the Zcashes, the Dashes of the world actually makes sense. But what we were doing actually was taking that technology, zero-knowledge proofs in particular, and focusing on extending that for security and for privacy, data privacy. And really, this big protocol we just released last week is all about massive scalability and privacy, really to make blockchain scale significantly, massively. And we talked about throughput and the fact that we can network thousands of blockchains together now, but also to have real data privacy on chain. And just setting those tools out there for the world so that when people do build the decentralized versions of Uber, as an example, you actually have privacy built in there. So users, their personal data isn't linked to the world. And ZKPs, zero-knowledge proofs, are really at the heart of that.
And I think when Ernst & Young came out and said that they're supporting zero-knowledge, that was a real big game changer to sort of show that, one of the more traditional kind of company, consultancies out there, to all the major Fortune 500 companies was embracing zero knowledge. I mean, I think it was a game changer that it's okay to use the word privacy.
Yeah, exactly. So the way we look at it, sometimes people challenge the idea of privacy. In particular, you combine privacy with money, like Zcash, Monero, privacy coins did. It can get a little scary, and regulators start looking at you. But I think when it comes to data privacy, it's really hard to.
Yeah, I think those are important distinctions between data and monetary privacy. And the other thing is between privacy and secrecy, right? Because you don't have anything called the Banking Privacy Act. You have the Banking Secrecy Act. It's all about if somebody needs to know that you're funneling into terrorism, can they find out? As opposed to privacy is not wanting your competitors to know what you're doing, or complying with GDPR and sort of having the right to privacy. So explain how you operating as more of an enterprise level privacy for data solves problems without creating issues with regulators.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And the way we look at it is the world is heading towards a realization that data is really the commodity of tomorrow, right? It's the oil of tomorrow. It has never been more valuable in history. And traditionally, so the platform model from Silicon Valley was, let's throw these platforms out there. Everyone loves these platforms. They generate an intense amount of data on them, like Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. And that data can be nefariously used, and number two, has real economic value. There's not a real demand out there that you start to see reflected in regulation with GDPR in Europe, and just the fact that people are pissed off at the Facebooks of the world. where they want privacy back. And they want privacy back either from a personal perspective, or because they realize, wow, you can actually make money on just the information that you generate as part of your daily course of life.
I would say besides all the blockchain companies moving down to Puerto Rico, a lot of privacy advocates moving down here as well. At the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association conference that kicked off PR Blockchain Week, on Monday I had the pleasure of interviewing Francis Haugen, who was the Facebook whistleblower, and then we have Brittany Kaiser and Ruben coming up later with some things, who of course was also a whistleblower as part of the whole Cambridge Analytica. And so I guess a lot of folks are coming down here from that world too, and it makes a lot of sense with a lot of the freedoms that Puerto Rico allows. What was we'll get back to Horizen just a real quick, what were your considerations for moving to Austin that's still, fairly freedom and low tax base to moving to Puerto Rico? What was your aha moment?
Yeah, besides the beautiful beaches and great culture and people here, we found the community, the crypto community here, and just the adjacent community was absolutely ridiculous. Because you have amazing entrepreneurs, crypto finance entrepreneurs in New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Austin, right? But here, they all live in the same 2 or 3 neighborhoods, right? So your group of friends here, your social network, really, it is just so much more powerful and just condensed, and really it's been the people at the end of the day.
I would agree with that. I would also say that if it takes 6 months to make a deal in New York and it takes 3 months to make a deal in San Francisco, I think it takes about like 3 days to make one here. Because you can get all of your, it's just like in Bermuda, they always told me that the strength of Bermuda was the ability of them able to pass laws quickly, because they had their entire all 3 of their legislative, judicial, regulatory, and presidential arms are all in the same building. Makes things simple to walk down the hall. And here, like you said, it's an Uber ride from Condado to Santurce to maybe you gotta go as far as Toronto, 40 minutes away.
That's exactly right. So again, you go to one event and you've got, a potential wallet partner, exchange partner, another software development company, and someone on the NFT side, the finance side. Really, the talents and just the people that you have here is ridiculous.
So let's talk about some of the diversity of deals that we've had just in the last couple months. What you're doing with Dash is very different than what you just announced today with NAFC.
Yeah, so we have a lot of them in the pipeline and stuff that I wish I could announce either right now. But what we announced today was a deal with a big exchange out of Asia, and NXC. And the deal there actually is they're experts in building crypto ecosystems. And just prior to us, they were one of the players behind building the Solana kind of miracle over this last year. Now they're turning their attention to us. Right? So now Horizen's at a point of just technology and ecosystem maturity, where now they are allocating a bunch of funds, resources, and really their community to make Horizen basically the next Solana. And that's one of them, right? So that's one of the projects. We realized early on in our BD efforts that what we provide in a very intense, scalable blockchain infrastructure with incredible software tools works really well for our own industry. And this is where we partnered with Dash, IOTA, Hedera, and others within crypto, because as you go through these BD calls, you realize you don't need to convince them that blockchain is important. We do a lot of that too, but actually, really our bread and butter so far has been partners within crypto.
And so with Dash, I think it's more of a marketing and so you're able to sort of take what these independent chains want to do and be kind of, I think of you as sort of being the chain link, except for an oracle for privacy.
Yeah, so that's actually a great lead-in here. What is it that we do? What is our technology? Our technology is all about interoperability across the industry, hence the chain link example. And that's what our protocol is. Our protocol uses fancy cryptography, zero-knowledge proofs, snarks in particular, to link blockchains. Right? So we can actually link and create interoperable blockchains where you can transfer assets across them using zero knowledge. This is powerful. You can think about Cosmos, Polkadot, these other sidechain systems. Swap out those validators in the middle, those certifiers in the middle, for cryptographic circuits. So really, I joked last night at the party, I'm not a rock star, I'm not a salesperson, really we're a deep technology engineering company, and at the core of what we do is cryptographic circuits, and we've figured out how to network blockchains using them. The second really critical piece of this is we do not want to reinvent every wheel in the world, and we want to bring the industry together. So our next step is we're racing towards Ethereum compatibility as really the next major milestone for us, and then it's about compatibility across the industry. Really starting from where do you have, I don't know, as an example, highest TVL, rank sort TVL, and we're going to point in that direction. So it's going to be, we want to be compatible and interoperable with the industry, and we use really deep cryptography to do that.
Well, that's really how every industry gains maturity, right? I'm old enough to remember the early days of, I'm really dating myself here, but the VCR wars, right? I mean, you had, I mean, they didn't take off until all of a sudden they settled on a standard that was VHS. Even though Betamax was actually a little bit better, the studios decided to line up and go for VHS, and they took over the industry. And then in the early days of the internet, you know, it was walled gardens. AOL did not talk to CompuServe, did not, but, you know, there was this little thing called the internet out there, and it was like, yeah, that's much smaller than AOL. Use AOL, use CompuServe, and, you know, in the early 90s, I mean, that's what was going on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, now all of a sudden the internet's not just for geeks anymore because you don't need a Unix server now to get on. I mean, the game changer was when Mark Andreessen, as a college student, using a grant, you know, under Larry Smarrs, created the first graphic browser. That was only in '93. There was almost nobody on the internet then. And by the year 2000, you had 1 billion people on the internet because the GUIs were better. And I think that's where we are with blockchain. You have to get a standard. When AOL dropped their proprietary and said, we're going to make more money on the internet, that's when things really took off. And I think when you're going to have something where it doesn't matter if you're on Polkadot or if you're on Cardano or if you're on, I mean, EVM certainly seems to be the one that's branching out and letting other people follow Talik's vision. And a lot of it's like, are you on MetaMask? Are you on some of the browsers? So your vision along those lines is that you don't care where it starts, you're going to let it finish someplace that can be accessible by everyone.
Exactly right. So this industry has evolved quite a bit, and for those who have been around long enough, you know the kind of tribalism that happens in crypto, the idea of one blockchain to rule them all. Not a big fan. I mean, ask MySpace how their network effects work for them. What you get at the end of the day are standards. Standards that we will conform to for interoperability. And Ethereum will have a massive standard, the major standard, and that's why we're racing for Ethereum compatibility. But that doesn't mean that everything has to happen within the Ethereum walled garden. So the other idea is the idea of walled gardens, not going to happen long term. If you think you're going to build within your stack and keep it there, good luck. At the end of the day, it's going to be interoperability and conforming to readily accessible standards. Like
interoperability of Ethereum will make Ethereum bigger than Bitcoin. Without interoperability, you won't have it. If everybody but Bitcoin is following EVM, then it just becomes a race of can Lightning go and build everything that Ethereum, all the other EVM systems, from Phantom to Polygon on down. And I would bet that the one with the most programmers instead of the one that was the most OG. There will always be a place for Bitcoin that cannot be replicated because of, the ability to not be controlled in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I think that that's what's going to drive El Salvador and all sorts of other places. But in terms of just use case in value locked, I mean, 200 billion to zero is where we're at right now in terms of, EVM versus things running on Lightning. So, I think that race is pretty much over. And I mean, Ainsley basically was talking about proof of stake being the enemy. And, I guess you need some of the maximalists there, but...
It's good entertainment. But yeah, so I think when we look at where the industry is going to go, I'm just not a believer in these kind of tribalistic mentalities. We really do need to think about where are we going to find the best standards and how are we going to incorporate them into our stack. And I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial. I like to reframe that as forward thinking. But I think blockchain will be commoditized, right? This idea, this technology of what we're doing, the things that it enables will be commoditized at the underlying infrastructure level. That's why we spent years, actually 3 years specifically, to build the infrastructure that we have now. We have the largest network in the industry, almost 50,000 servers around the world running our software. We were very intentional about building a very large network, and the interoperability protocol you mentioned, Zen2, is all about massive scale, right? Because we think that over time, this technology will be commoditized.
Well, why is the internet controversial right now? It's not because of the internet, because in the early days of the internet, they had, it was all about freedom, and there was the Electronic Frontier Foundation said, I still have my feature somewhere, I can find it. It said, the internet regards censorship as damage and simply routes around it. Tell that to Twitter, tell that to Facebook. Right now the controversy isn't about the internet. Nobody these days actually goes and experiences the internet without the gatekeeper of the big tech companies, right? And so we hope that doesn't happen in blockchain. You want to have it so that you can experience pure blockchain, and you'll go through different areas, but if somebody's acting in a way you don't want, you should be able to route around and find the way you do want.
Yeah, that's why we're big believers in decentralization, right? So decentralization is not just a buzzword we use for our marketing campaigns, we actually mean it. It's at the heart of what we do, and I think as an industry, if we think about problems we're actually solving, like why is blockchain useful versus databases, it comes down to decentralization, so you can't have that kind of censorship. So you've made such progress in the last just couple of months, really. Where do you see yourself in another, say, 3 years? I love it, everywhere. So we'll be in your pocket on your smartphone, not in a creepy way, but we'll be everywhere, guys. We have some really great partnerships right now. We're really taking the time to do the technology right, to scale right. So we're going to be, like I said, the coolest thing I think we have ongoing in the next few months is going to be Ethereum Compatibility, but it doesn't stop there. Then there's a whole infrastructure, Web3.
Ethereum Compatibility meaning you'll go on MetaMask and actually be able to have a drop down that says Horizen.
100%, exactly. So we're going to do an Ethereum virtual machine as a side chain within Horizen.
Wow. Heard it here first. Maybe not first, but loudest. It's a commitment, right?
Exactly. You guys can hold me to it.
Okay. Let's see. What have I not asked you that I should have?
Oh, wow. Great question. Any questions from the audience? There's some people in the audience who know me very well.
We're happy to take a question, otherwise I'll remember some of the other questions I should have asked, but I talk fast, so we burned through quite a few of them in 18 minutes.
I just wonder what you guys think of the Bitcoin ETF.
About the Bitcoin ETF? I mean, I'll tell you, I'm happy for Bitcoin ETFs, for many of them. I want to see more capital flowing into our markets, for sure. I don't know anything about the regulatory front or status or anything. You know a lot more.
I would say it's a shame that the first ETF that was approved was a Bitcoin futures ETF, which basically meant you're betting on how Wall Street's betting for or against. And so it's been down since this passage, Bitcoin's been up. So, you should really let somebody who wants to, invest in Bitcoin be one-to-one like an old ETF is. And it's a mystery to me why it hasn't happened. Crypto Mom, who of course was here on the island earlier this week, has been saying there's no reason we shouldn't have a Bitcoin ETF. You can buy Bitcoin ETFs in other jurisdictions. Guess what? You can also just buy it. You can buy Bitcoin natively, and it's the best way to do it. Buy it on Coinbase, take it off, put it in a hard wallet, and call us in 5 years and tell us how happy you are.
That was literally my question is, why do I need these financial instruments when I can just buy Bitcoin?
It makes it more friendly to certain sectors like mid-market, certain types of institutions, and that just means more volume coming in. And all that is good, all it is inevitable, and it's just this pent-up demand of the changing world that, you're really a leader on the enterprise side of. And I think this S-curve of adoption is going to really happen when mobile gets them. That's when the internet took off. Mobile and better GUI's happening. Mobile, I don't care if it's from, better wallets on the handsets or someone like Verizon or T-Mobile coming in and saying, hey, switch to, they had ads a few years ago saying, switch to T-Mobile, we'll give you an $800 Samsung Gear headset, so you can play with your VR, which was way smaller market than what crypto is today. All you need for them is to simply switch the narrative and start putting out, they probably wouldn't do it on TV anymore, put out like something on YouTube ads and say, switch to Verizon, we'll give you $800 of digital assets.
It says at Verizon, right?
I said Verizon was what, I mean, I would hope AT&T does, and they seem to be kind of lagging into my history of AT&T. But any of the top guys. Oh yeah, Verizon did a very good deal,
Right,
right?
put in a good workplace.
Yeah. Get your Horizon from Verizon. And our time is up, and Rob and his whole team, see the t-shirts, will be around the rest of the days, and thank you again for supporting our event, and thank you for building such great technology on the island.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it, guys. Grab your free t-shirts outside. We have a booth.